That's what I said to them.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm gonna start
All right.
that. Evan, if you want to send me the info, I'll call him from a different phone.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get started. So thank you, everyone, for attending the April meeting of the Tri-Valley Dems. To get started, if you would like to follow along with the Pledge of Allegiance, please do. Let's begin.
It says 18. Okay.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
The
of
flag
the United States of America and to the republic
for
for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty
and
and justice for all.
justice for all.
All right, thank you all. And so we have an exciting meeting today. We're working through a couple of technical challenges, which seem to be the theme for the different Zoom meetings over the last few months. So right now we have one of the sheriff's candidates has made it in and the other one is working on getting in right now. So it might take just a minute before we get started. So with that, today's meeting, we have a few exciting things on the docket. So the main event is going to be our endorsement vote for either Yesenia Sanchez or Joanne Walker for the Alameda County Sheriff. So we have the two candidates who are eligible here today. We're going to be meeting them, speaking with them, hearing a little bit from both of them, and then being able to ask questions of them. Once we have that going, at the end of that section of the meeting, we will vote on endorsements. Because there are only two people, we will be voting to endorse either candidate, or if neither one gets 60%, we would be at no endorsement. So those are the options before us, but it will be one or the other, or no endorsement. After that, we will be talking about a couple other items. I will put the agenda up now, but we're going to be talking about AB 2546 with John Rowe. It's a healthcare, it's a bill to help people basically be able to see their loved ones in hospice or long-term healthcare. And then we'll be doing our typical business towards the end of the meeting. With that, let me put the link really quickly up. Here is the link to the agenda. So I'm looking, give me one moment to check if Joanne is having, okay. So we're gonna give Joanne a couple of minutes to see if she's able to get in before we get started. And let me think. I think that's basically it. So I'll do a couple of my announcements at the beginning of the meeting instead of later. So one thing is one of our endorsed candidates, Sean Kumagai, is having a number of events coming up. He's going to be working on, he is to prepare for the primary. He is having people walking the precincts as well as calling. I need to get the exact link for that and I'll post it in chat once I have it. But he has a sign up sheet. I do encourage everyone, of course, to support our endorsed candidates as much as possible. So if you have time, he is walking the precincts on Saturdays and Sundays, I believe. It might just be Saturdays coming up. And he is doing phone banking on Thursdays, I believe it is. There might be other dates as well. What do you think? Those were my main things I wanted to start the meeting with. Then with that, I think I'll go over some of the rules for the endorsement meeting before we get started. And we'll see if hopefully Joanne gets in before we get going. Otherwise, to respect Yesenia's time, we'll get started close to on time, at least, either way. So with that, basically the general format is the same for all of you who have been here. It will be an opportunity for the candidates to speak to us. We'll give them 5 minutes for opening statements. We'll then go to a Q&A with members of the club. So the members of the club will be able to ask questions. I strongly encourage people to raise their hand and ask the questions themselves. If you really want to, you can put them in chat and our moderator will read them, but it is always much nicer to have a flow of you guys asking the questions instead of just us, the moderator asking over and over. Kunal will be the moderator for this one, so he'll be, keeping track of time, keeping the candidates on track, and then helping just with the flow of the event. He did a great job last time, so I'm excited for him to get to do this again. If anyone in the future does want to moderate one of the events, just reach out. I'm happy to let other people also have their time at the mic. So with that said, so it'll be 5-minute opening statements. We ask the candidates to stick to around a minute for their answers to the questions. I know that's a short time, but we do like to get through a bunch of questions. We won't cut you off at exactly a minute, but if it goes too long, then we'll ask you to kind of wrap it up. And then at the end, you'll have 2 minutes for just kind of a closing remarks to say your thank yous, and I'll put up the website and all of that. After that is done, we will go to voting. Voting is pretty straightforward. You'll be sent a Google form. It is open for members of the club who have been members for 28 days or more, who are in attendance at this meeting. It is generally open to, I think, basically everyone who is here. I recognize most of the names and faces, so all of you who are here, I think, are members of the club and eligible to vote. So you'll be voting, you'll be able to vote between the two candidates or for the option of no endorsement. If any one candidate gets 60% of the vote, then we are endorsing that candidate. If no candidate reaches the 60% threshold, then it would be a no endorsement vote. With all of that, I think to respect the candidate's time, to respect the attendee's time, we're going to get started. If Joanne is able to make it, we'll have her come in and, we'll change the flow a little, let her speak and, have a little bit of time to kind of get caught up. But I don't want to push back this item later in the agenda because we do have Yesenia here.
Do you have a phone number, Evan, for me to call Joanne?
I'll check. I'll let Kunal get started on welcoming Yesenia and starting the opening statements, then I'll check to see if I have a phone number.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everybody, for making it. My name is Kunal. I'm going to host this forum. It's going to be fun. So like Evan said, you have 5 minutes until I guess Joanne shows up for your opening remarks, and then limited when we open it up to Q&A, please keep it to a minute, but I'm sure if it's just you, we can get through a couple more questions. And then at the end, you'll have a 2-minute ending statement. And with that being said, I'll let you start your opening remarks.
Great. Well, thank you. And good evening to everyone. Thank you to the Tri-Valley Dems for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Yesenia Sanchez. I was born in Hayward and attended public schools there. My father immigrated to California from Mexico, Jalisco, Mexico in 1965. My mom is from San Antonio, Texas. She came to Oakland when she was 6. I have 3 stepdaughters. I'm currently married. Before I actually was hired on to the sheriff's office, I worked 3 jobs, Monday through Friday at a used car lot in San Leandro. I was working a night shift from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. at the Oakland airport for Federal Express. I was loading cargo planes. I worked weekends at McDonald's, and during that period of time in my life, I was a couch surfer. I lived mostly out of my car and wherever I could lay my head. So I started working with the sheriff's office when I was 19. I promoted up the ranks and worked a variety of assignments, including patrol, investigations, jail operations, and administrative roles. I've also supervised in these areas as well. So now that I'm a 25-year veteran, highest ranking female on the agency, my role has definitely changed, but the way that I treat people hasn't. I lead by showing my staff that I value them just as I value myself, and I answer to them just as much as they answer to me. And I nor will I lead by fear. Now that I'm a division commander, even as a division commander, I am not allowed the authority to make much needed changes at the jail, which is where I manage right now, Santa Rita Jail. And that is one of the reasons why I am running for sheriff. I have established strong relationships with our agency managers and county partners, which will allow me to hit the ground running. You cannot shift the culture of an agency as large as the sheriff's office alone. It must be done in partnership. And that partnership and those relationships are built from trust and credibility, and this does not develop overnight. So reforming the attitudes from within and reshaping the culture of the sheriff's office starts at the top. As a woman of color, I have the lived experiences to understand and recognize implicit and explicit bias and how it can lead to inequitable outcomes in our criminal justice system. I have a number of action items that I would implement right away. I am committed to reshaping our jail by providing our incarcerated with access to a higher level of education, life skills, and employment services in a more robust way. And this can be achieved by bringing apprenticeship programs into our jail. The incarcerated can start their instruction while serving time, and this would make their time meaningful. They can realize opportunities they had never thought to seek out. When they're released, they can continue on with instruction or begin to earn hours towards their trade and advance in their trade. This is how we can reduce recidivism and reduce crime. This is crime prevention by bringing jobs that enable people to provide for themselves and their families and live in this county. I will also adopt community policing agency-wide. It will not be an effort that's just led by small community policing units. I will cease communication with ICE and support Supervisor Valle's resolution to communicate with ICE only when there's a criminal warrant signed by a federal magistrate. I will make our internal affairs unit autonomous and make policy revisions to ensure fair processes and eliminate favoritism. I will also review current hiring practice to ensure that we are identifying and attracting a diverse, inclusive workforce that represents our communities. And that means that we go out to community events, cultural events, and you will see our presence, and I will be personally part of that effort. Thank you for having me. I look forward to our conversation.
Great. Thank you so much for your opening remarks. Evan, do we have any word on Joanna?
Sounds like she's trying to log in. So if Jackie, I think Jackie's actually working with her right now.
Okay.
So I think what would be fair is let's queue up the first question.
Okay.
If you don't mind, Yesenia, we'll give you an opportunity to answer the first question. So if a member would like to ask,
Sure.
And then we'll hopefully at that point, Joanne will come in and can give her opening remarks and answer the first question as well, without us getting too deep into it.
Great. For anybody who wants to ask a question, feel free to raise your hand. You have the floor. For others who want to type it, I can also read it aloud. See, John has a question. You have the floor.
Do I have the floor?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay, sorry. Good evening, Mrs. Sanchez. As one Hayward born to another, congratulations. We do okay out of Hayward.
That's right.
I'm dipping back into the mid-70s when I was involved in training police officers for post. I've heard plenty about community policing over the decades and never seen any results. Just like when I was doing police training, I was training officers in de-escalation of 415 situations. That's all seemed to have fallen by the wayside, and the reports are probably sitting in some box in the storeroom. Despite the fact it was very effective reducing officer fatality and injury and the recidivism rate of the suspects. I'm very pleased to hear what your policies are. How are you going to defeat the dinosaur in the office?
I second the question too.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a true grassroots campaign. I am reaching out to our community leaders, our elected leaders, and if you've noted my endorsements, and I'll touch on them later, I have had a huge success with gaining the support that I need and being able to secure labor Alameda Labor Council, building and construction trades, as well as the Democratic parties across the board. It is really telling. And Democrats are, committed to an effort, and they are committed to the effort of bringing what the county is looking for with respect to a law enforcement leader and a representation of what our community is and the values of our communities. And so being that I've secured a number of groups, they come with people, and this is definitely a people-powered campaign, and it is the power of the people that will see this win through.
Thank you so much for the question, and thank you so much for the response. I see Helen has her hand raised. You have the floor.
Okay. Hello. Am I correct, Kunal, that Joanne will be asked the questions when she manages to get on?
Evan,
Or Evan?
this one.
I would like to do that. We're going to have to see. It kind of depends on the timing of everything. But hopefully we'll be able to ask her the same question.
Okay, because this is kind of a question for both of them. I was looking up today on news, and it seems that the Alameda County Sheriff's Office has $185 million, perhaps more, in their budget, and over 1,500 people that are under the sheriff. And I would like to ask both of the candidates what experience they have that would support dealing with that kind of money, which is a huge amount of money to me at least, and a lot of people. So what experience do you have in dealing with those, both of them?
Yes. So I'll answer. I don't think Joanne's on yet. As far as the budget, with Santa Rita Jail encompassing the largest duty station of the county or the sheriff's office, I manage a budget of roughly 300 million right now and over 600 employees. It is not an easy feat, for sure. There's definitely not only managing the budget, but their procurement processes that are quite extensive with the county, and making sure that we are going through appropriate bidding processes and onboarding contracts correctly and managing those contracts. And when I talk about contracts and you wonder what encompasses 300 million, it's for food. For food, we're looking at millions of dollars. If you're looking at medical contracts worth $60 million. So this is definitely something that you need to have a full understanding of how those contracts are managed and how we keep on top of those contracts that encompass a large majority of our budget, but also the staffing and making sure that we are staffing the jail appropriately and making sure that we are being responsible with how we staff that jail. And that's kind of where we see ourselves right now. That jail has not been managed. I was assigned to the jail in April of 2020. And I definitely inherited quite a problem. We had already entered into a lawsuit, and we're in the middle of a negotiation for a consent decree. We saw the DOJ come in 2019 and provide an investigation of lack of mental health care and treatment within the jail. And a lot of those issues have surfaced because of the fact that the jail has been ignored and it has been a lesser priority to our current leadership. And we see we're working through some issues because of that.
Great. Thank you for the question and response. I want to ask a question that was posted in the chat. It's from Robin. And the question is, what are the greatest challenges facing the police force today? And what would you do to improve the conditions for an officer?
Yes, so there's definitely many challenges. One of the challenges, as we've seen across the nation, is how we police our communities and making sure that we are policing equitably across our various communities. I definitely will be partnering with organizations to make sure that we are our data is analyzed and make sure that our body-worn cameras are reviewed so that we have an idea that we are policing responsibly and equitably, and making sure that that information is publicly reviewed and seen. But I believe that review will lead to policy change and whatnot. But There's definitely making sure that we are able to build trust, and that's trust through community policing and making sure that we have positive engagements with our law enforcement officers, with our community members. But what I want to focus on too is making sure that I am setting up our staff for success, that I am staffing our duty stations appropriately so that I'm not asking or tasking them with more than they can handle, because that leads to people doing the job and maybe not putting enough value into the tasks that they're performing because they're just trying to get through it because we're asking too much of them. We're under a mandatory overtime program right now that's been going on for 3 years, and we've asked a lot from our people, and we have seen some that have gone off on stress. They're suffering burnout. There are definitely steps that can be made right now to lessen that burden, but the current incumbent does not want to make those steps or take those actions to refocus and reassign some staff to the jail that would alleviate some of the mandatory overtime that we have placed on our staff members. But I'm also one who works with and I have a really great relationship with our Deputy Sheriff's Association and our SEIU 10-to-1 membership, because I've been at the table personally to negotiate if there are concerns that are brought forth by the memberships, because when I make decisions, I want to make sure that I am not impacting or making unreasonable asks. So I definitely listen to their voices and their concerns. I have been at those tables for negotiations and meet and confers, and they know that I'm going to make decisions with them in mind.
Great. Thank you for the question, for the response. I want to hand it over to our former President Ellis, who has his hand raised. I'm sure he's got a great question. Oh, we lost your video. There it is.
There we go. I hit the video instead of the unmute. Thank you. I understand that you're going against Sheriff Ahern, who's been there for quite a while. We have 2 Democrats going against what I gather is a Republican, but the Republican has some support from Democrats, particularly Eric Swalwell is on his website, and so is Sean Kumagai and Tim Sobrante, who's also a former president of this club. What makes you think that you're best suited to beat Sheriff Ahern in November? That's my question. What do you have up your sleeve as a campaign strategy?
Yes, so I touched on it earlier as far as what it takes to win. And I want to win in June. That's my goal, to take this in June, right? And my strategy is communicating with people, and what the difference and what I will bring to this office is the fact that I will be present and accessible. And that's already seen by our elected leaders. I've been calling them, I've been meeting with them to discuss concerns that have been ongoing for a number of years with current leadership. And that's what you need. You need to be present, and you need to be able to have conversations regardless of whether they are comfortable or uncomfortable. But that's what it takes. It takes making sure that you are accessible to the community and answering their concerns and addressing the issues that they bring forth. So it is definitely a lot of work, but what I've learned is in communicating with our city leaderships and even our county leaders. I mean, I've been endorsed by Supervisors Dave Brown and Supervisor Richard Valle. And it is a relationship that they are looking forward to, because they know that I am someone that they'll be able to talk to and have a conversation with that is not my way or no way. And that's what's really driving this campaign to where it needs to go, because being able to have those conversations and relationships, that's how we work together. We can stop working within silos. We can start working in partnership. That's what the cities are looking for. That's what the communities and the community leaders are looking for as well.
Great. Thank you for the question and for the response. I want to call on an old friend. Mark Van Landuit has a question. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you as well. A great friend, Kunal. Thank you. You are. Ms. Sanchez, I want to thank you for making time this evening. And I also want to thank you for stepping up and running for this position. I am curious about your perspective on certain policies And so I was wondering, what's your stance on the issues of no-knock warrants, of private prisons, of military equipment sales to police municipalities, and the big one, what is your stance on qualified immunity?
Can you
I
hear
know
me?
I know I've loaded up the question quite a bit, but I'm
Are
very
you
curious to
on?
hear your thoughts on all those policies.
All right. So let's see, where should I start?
Okay, I'm gonna jump.
I want to
Can you
ask,
hold on for,
yeah, one sec. Jackie, would you mind muting?
I apologize. I'm apologizing big time to everybody for this Zoom problem. It's really causing an issue. I apologize.
Thank you. All right. Did everybody hear the question? Do we need it repeated?
Oh my goodness, I don't think I can repeat it all.
So I understood a military equipment, that's definitely something that it's definitely clear. The sheriff's office is not a military force, right? And the equipment that we use must be proportionate to the threat posed. And I know that there's definitely been some failures on the sheriff's office side. If you take, for example, the Moms for Housing response, that was absolutely the most irresponsible way to respond to a situation for civil eviction of that sort. So one thing that I will point out is that there has been recent legislation, AB 481, that was recently enacted to inform the public of acquisition of military equipment by law enforcement. So it also requires law enforcement to seek approval before acquiring new equipment or to even continue using existing equipment. So we have been working with our PNR unit, Planning and Research Unit, sorry, I'm used to the abbreviation. So, and they are taken and they have taken a list of what we have existing. And anytime we move forward with a purchase, the Board of Supervisors will be aware and basically approves. So the Sheriff's Office, we use certain pieces of equipment to shield ourselves from any kind of dangers or weapons that could be, used against us, like armored vehicles, for example, allow for law enforcement to shield themselves while trying to calm a volatile situation. Someone such as a barricaded subject who may be armed, and it buys them time to de-escalate situations. I think John touched on some of that training. Time, if you can use time and have some place to be, to stand behind and be safe while you're trying to communicate with an individual and talk them down, that's definitely tools that we need. But of course, just like I touched on earlier, these vehicles need to be used when appropriate. I'll make sure that we, any equipment or any acquired equipment that we use, it will be used responsibly and only acquired to ensure the safest outcome for all involved. Remind me about your other.
No-knock warrants.
No-knock warrants. So no-knock warrants are dangerous. We have seen what the outcomes can be across the nation. I am not a fan of no-knocks because it is something, it's a very old school way of making entry and effecting search warrants and arrest warrants. But it's just inherently dangerous. And you're putting not only the people inside who may not even know why you're there at risk and in danger, but you're also putting your staff and your officers in danger as well. So I'm not a fan of the no-knocks. I'm definitely a fan of the surround and call out, which is a method that we've been moving towards.
Great. And the last two are private prisons and qualified immunity.
So qualified immunity, that's definitely something that I will take responsibility. Any leadership that manages an agency has to take responsibility for how they train and the policies that are written to guide their staff, because that's really what provides qualified immunity to officers. It's when your officers deviate from their training, when they go rogue, when they are acting in ways where they are acting within or out of bounds, really. And obviously, I mean, there's some serious situations that have occurred in the past, even including the sheriff's office, where we've had members that have committed crimes, and qualified immunity should not be for those individuals. If you are acting and in ways of criminal misconduct, then you will be held accountable. And qualified immunity is not for those situations. Those individuals need to be held accountable for any actions that they take that are malicious or have an intent to harm, or anything that doesn't fall within what our guidance provides. And I know that qualified immunity has been misused, and it's always an attempt for protection for individuals that have committed crimes and whatnot, or misconduct violations, but that's not the intent behind it, and it should not be used for that. And then the next one is
Lastly, private prisons.
private prisons. I don't believe that private prisons have enough oversight. They don't follow the same rules as county facilities or state facilities. I believe that they are, for the most part, for-profit entities, from what I understand. And I definitely have taken a pledge not to take, just kind of on a side note, take contributions for for-profit folks that profit from prisons or incarceration. So I'm definitely not a fan of private prisons. They are not regulated as much as they should be.
Great. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you for the question and for the answer. I'd like to call on John Bauer. You have the floor.
Great, thank you. And I found the raise my hand feature. It was hidden under another one. So once again, I'd like to thank you for your time this evening. And I have the following three topics or questions. In your opening statement, you stated that as soon as, if you're elected sheriff, that you would change policy within the department. And so here's my question regarding that. What is the current procedure for changing policy? And does the sheriff department use Lexapol? My second question is, would you support splitting the coroner responsibilities from the sheriff department? And the third question is, and I admire your story of rising through the ranks over your 25 years and to where you currently are in your position, but you've been with the sheriff's department for 25 years. So how do you respond to the question that new blood is needed in the Alameda County Sheriff's Department? And that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So let's see, coroner's office. I'll start with coroner's office. I can see why there are concerns about a sheriff managing a coroner's office. And I say that because I've done a little bit of research. Once I heard that, the concern surfacing, and I realized that in 2018, San Joaquin County, their sheriff coroner operations were audited. And it was concluded that removing the sheriff from death investigations and instituting a medical examiner, an office run by a physician, is the best way to ensure that probes remain independent of law enforcement. And I'm definitely open to having a conversation for the separation. There may be a significant cost to separate, and that would definitely have to be considered. But definitely a conversation worth having. I do believe that there is valid concerns behind the separation, and I'm willing to have that discussion with the Board of Supervisors. But in the meantime, there is a development of a Sheriff's Office Oversight Committee through AB 1185, and we may be able to discuss how we add a layer of oversight into the Sheriff's Office so that there could be a way to draw information, how we report. I know some of the concerns was how we report deaths where it might be related to an officer involved shooting, for example. So it's definitely worth a conversation having. So that's something I'm sure that the Board of Supervisors potentially will engage with me on. Let's see, what was the other question again?
Okay, so two more. So in your opening statement, you said that you would immediately change policy. So what is the current procedure for changing policy? And does the sheriff department use Lexapol as its third party, Lexapol as its third party provider for policy?
Gotcha. So we do not use Lexapol. I know that it was something, an avenue that we looked into before, but it was decided to move away from that. Lexapol is a little too templated, if you ask me, and there's no one size fits all in policy when it comes to the sheriff's office or even police organizations in the cities. So we develop policy by our planning and research team is responsible for all of our written directives, and our written directives guide our agency as a whole. We do have a separate documentation or guideline, and those are our policies, and our policies are specific to our duty stations. And every duty station has a unit that is responsible for updating policy and making sure that it complies with state regulations, including Title 15, Title 24, and of course, state law and legislation. So we definitely have those units, and our planning and research team has a review annually, and not so much annually, even more so than annually, where we're the team. And I used to oversee that team. I used to be the captain of support services, and planning and research falls within support services. So it does follow a chain of command when you're talking about changing written directives, and the written directives go all the way up to the chain to the undersheriff. Policies go all the way up the chain to the captain, sometimes the commander. It all depends on how big of a change it's going to be. So for those individual units. So that's how policy is changed. And when it comes to a written directive, when it affects the whole agency, it definitely is something that is in discussion with the sheriff to make sure that he is in line with what the policy change is going to be. And sometimes he just doesn't have a choice because it is going to be mandated by state law. So that is the process for policy change. But I'm very well attuned to how that process goes. And I will definitely make sure that that process is sped up on a number of policy changes that I will be making. And the other one was.
So the last one was, once again, you have an impressive resume being with the sheriff's office, rising through the ranks for 25 years. That's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you respond to people who have the position that, new blood is needed in the sheriff department?
So having a complete outside entity
Yes.
come into the sheriff's office. So it's definitely, I can understand why people feel that way. And this is the reason why I'm running, right? Because people believe that just because the sheriff represents the agency, that we all believe the way that he believes, that we all feel the same way and we have the same thoughts, but that is absolutely not true. And so being frustrated by that, I have chosen to, now that I'm a division commander, run for the sheriff because I do not believe that his thoughts and ways of providing service to the community are in line with the county's values. So being that I've been within the agency for 25 years, I definitely know the processes. I mean, I've worked almost every division. There's only one division that I haven't worked under. And I know how the operations work, but I also know the people that are doing the work. And I've always been accessible to staff, and I've always treated them with respect. And the one thing that you have to realize as a manager and as a leader, most definitely, is that you don't do the work alone. You can have someone who has the full intent to come in and change an organization from the top to the bottom to the top, however you want to say it. But unless that person has built trust and credibility with the members that are going to actually do the job, with the members who actually have to buy into your vision, your message, your direction, your guidance, it's going to be a long time. Because that is something that is built over time. And because I've been a civilian, I've known how to work within the agency as a civilian for 4 years. I didn't have a badge, but I was a hard worker and I worked my way up. People already know what I've achieved, and those relationships that I've built and the leadership that we have coming up in the agency that have worked for me, that I've supervised in the past, they already know what I'm about. They already know what we can achieve together. And so they are ready for this change. They just haven't been able to move forward in the direction that we need to because of who's leading us right now. So I hope that answers your question, but it definitely is something that I have to understand, and I do understand and know and acknowledge, is that the people that work in the agency that are the ones that are doing the job, and they have to have the buy-in and be able to respect and trust the person who's going to be guiding them.
Great. Thank you for that. I'm going to hand it over to Evan. I was going to talk a
Thank
little
you.
bit about what I'm going to do next.
Thank you
Evan,
very much.
this is Jackie. I finally have Joanne, but I had to Zoom conference her in on my phone to be able to pull her in.
That's creative.
For whatever reason, Zoom is not working with her email. It won't let her in. So she's been trying, bless her heart,
Okay.
ever since the beginning. So
Okay,
I'm going to try to get her picture here close enough so you guys can at least see her. And please do not cut her short. If you need to cut out the rest of the stuff for the meeting, please allow proper time.
Yeah, thank you. So I think, so what I think that we're going to do, in the sake of time and fairness, is it's a little bit different structure, but if Kunal, if you're comfortable with this, going back through and basically instead of us having the normal back and forth on each question, so Yesenia got the first section of the meeting, give the second section of the meeting to Joanne, and then give each candidate a little bit longer for closing statements because we've had, you know, quite a bit of time with each candidate in a row. So I think that might be fair. Does that work for you, Kunal?
Yeah, sure. We'll try our best to cover each question everybody asked.
Okay, then really quickly on that, I would ask that people, if you could please not put more things in chat or, you know, raise hands because it'll start flowing through. So for the moment, if everyone could just stay off chat and like Kunal work through with Joanne on opening statements and through the questions, that would be greatly appreciated. And take it away, Kunal.
Perfect. All right. So nice to see you. This is very creative. I'll give you guys that. You will have 5 minutes for an opening statement. Hopefully we can all hear you. And then each preceding question, we'll keep it to about a minute. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. But yes, you'll have 5 minutes and your time begins now.
Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me. I really appreciate this. I was determined not to be a no-show. So my name is Joanne Walker. I'm running to become the next sheriff of Alameda County. I am a 40-plus year resident of Alameda County, a 26-year law enforcement veteran, as well as an adjunct professor of more than 27 years at California State University, East Bay. I have a master's degree in exercise physiology and 2 bachelor's degrees, one in French and another in nutrition and performance. I am an award-winning volunteer suicide prevention counselor and a 2016 recipient of the U.S. Attorney General's Award for Distinguished Service in Community Policing. My law enforcement career includes working as a terrorism liaison officer, community relations unit liaison, station keeper, field training officer, peer support counselor, academy instructor, crisis intervention member, captain problem-solving team member, and a liaison for Healthy Streets Operations Center. That is the unit that deals specifically with anything that relates to homelessness. I have developed and conducted training for law enforcement professionals in hate crimes, tactical communications, and crisis support / suicide prevention. I have a certificate of achievement from the Robert Priestley Institute of Criminal Investigation, where my focus was domestic violence. I am a graduate of the Master Instructor Development Program. My focus was police response to emotionally disturbed persons. The MIDP program allows me to develop training for law enforcement throughout California. My education, training, and experience with crisis support and suicide prevention gives me a unique perspective regarding what residents in Alameda County want from our Sheriff's Department. A great deal of work is needed to reduce crime while also building public trust effectively. My 26-year career has given me keen insight into strategies that work versus strategies that look good on paper. The basis of my platform is accountability, reform, and community-oriented policing in order to build trust. With introspection, hard work, and cooperation, we can make the needed changes in the Alameda County Sheriff's Department. In the interest of time, I'm going to stop there so that you can ask some of the other questions that you are interested in finding my position on. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you so much. Also, thank you to Jackie, who's holding the phone for us all to see. The first question that was asked is, in short, how are you going to defeat the incumbent Sheriff Ahern?
I'm simply going to tell the truth. I am not going to make excuses, and I'm going to put it on the line. When I say it, I mean in terms of my platform and what I have done in terms of my career. I'm already doing some of the things that are expected. For example, we can talk about making sure that prisoners or inmates are safe upon contact with deputy sheriffs. I'm very concerned because it seems like the deputy sheriffs either have not been trained or they don't know how to recognize when a person is having a mental breakdown with reality or they're in some sort of crisis. And all of the Zoom meetings that I've attended with both the incumbent and Mrs. Sanchez, no one took any responsibility, or no one has taken responsibility for the 56 deaths that have occurred at Santa Rita Jail. And they didn't appear to know anything about Title 15, which is what I heard Mrs. Sanchez talk about just as I was getting on. Title 15 is an 8-hour class that deputies can take. Anyone can take the class in order to learn what you need to do when you are accepting someone into a law enforcement facility. If the person shows you that they are in crisis, whether it is alcoholism, drug induced, or they're having an organic problem with the brain, you are not supposed to admit that person into the county jail. You're supposed to divert that person to a hospital so that their mental health needs can be met, they can be stabilized, and then they can be taken into the county jail or transported into the county jail. I'm the person who makes that call at the station where I work. It's called Station Keeper. It's just a simple 8-hour class. So for people to have been working at Santa Rita Jail and not know what to do and not direct their people for that type of training is problematic for me as a person who does it already. So the only thing that I can do is simply tell the truth from where I stand as a 26-year veteran who has done a variety of things in my training while at the same time teaching at a university. So my skills are not skills that happened 25 years ago. They're skills that I have been honing the entire time that I have been working with the San Francisco Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you for your response. The next question that was asked was, what experience do you have to handle the sheriff's office budget?
Okay, in terms of budget, what I can tell you is this. I have taken on about 7 children who were not mine. And I took them on because the Unified School District decided that they were failures and really just stopped giving the wraparound services they need in order to succeed. As a teacher, it was important to me to point out and clear a path for these young children. In order for me to do that, I had to set up a budget. The budget was that each of the 7 required something financially, emotionally, psychologically, and physically. And I had to be the one, I chose rather, to be the one to set up things that I could do to help them. That's a budget. In terms of, now let me share with you how that translates into working with a budget in the Sheriff's Department. One of the things that I know is that about 95 to 97% of the budget deals with personnel issues. The other 3 or 5% is going to deal with discretionary spending. As a person who is not working for the Sheriff's Department, I assume that the sheriff himself is the one who designates how much money, let's say, the commander who's over Santa Rita Jail gets. So that commander is responsible for using that money to handle whatever the problems may be that come up. And so me, in terms of handling a budget, I know that you have to put some money away for a rainy day. You have to have money for the intricacies, the personnel, the supplies, the equipment, those people who come in and are contracted to work in the kitchen. There are things that that money is already designated for. So that's not discretionary, that's mandatory. So what am I going to do with the rest of the money, and where I put the rest of the money depends on what I see as a priority. And so for me, it's about checking and balancing each line item, understanding where the money is going, what it is used for, and then what I am going to do to better what is happening at Santa Rita Jail. So it's a comparison and a contrast. What is he doing now? What is the person doing who's in control of who is over Santa Rita Jail? What are they doing now? And how can I do it differently with less? And if I need more money, I know that another way to get money is to make sure that I have people who can write grants and set up programs where the money can come in from a different source. And then that way, the money that I allot to work on the jail itself is something that will not be impacted, because the money that I am using to set up programming and to set up classes and to set up a host of things that may be for wraparound service, to set up counseling, those funds can come from an outside source and everything can balance itself out. It takes patience, it takes time, it takes knowledge, and it takes the will to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your response. The next question that was asked was regarding your stance on qualified immunity, the sale of military equipment, no-knock warrants, and private prisons.
And what was the last one, sir?
Private prisons.
Private prisons.
Yeah.
Okay, I can go backwards. Not for private prisons. I'm going to make it very easy there, because we have to abide by certain rules and regulations. The question is, do private prisons that are privatized follow the same guidelines, or are they doing something on their own? I would prefer to follow guidelines that are transparent, that people know comes from a source that they can depend on, that is reliable. And if everyone goes into a prison and the prison is privatized, I don't know, I'm very unclear on what they do there and who is held responsible for the activities that occur within that particular facility. So no, I'm not for the privatization of prisons. The one before that was what? That was the qualified immunity?
That's correct.
Okay, the qualified immunity, I know that sometimes things happen that people don't agree with, that some activities that police and folks in law enforcement take on and get involved in, it may not be what the public wants. The question is, are they outside of policy and procedure? If they are not outside of policy and procedure and people are upset because they don't like the manner in which the officer carried out the responsibility, or they don't like the outcome, they can sue, but the officer should be protected in the event that he has not or she has not done anything that's outside of policy or procedure. If people are upset and they don't like it, one of the things that they can do is opt to talk to their congressman or their senator and change the laws, which we have seen take place with Black Lives Matter since the murder of George Floyd on television. Now, there's another caveat that we need to make sure we are aware of, and that is when a person who is in uniform decides to, in uniform, violate the civil rights, the constitutional rights of another individual. Then as far as that, when it is determined that that officer did it deliberately with negligence for human life, and there are a host of other words that people use to describe the activity or the attitude of the officer in terms of, or the lack of profession that he has for, or respect that he has for the person and their constitutional rights, then that falls under the color of authority. And based on the egregiousness of the action, it is either a felony or a misdemeanor. Most of the time when I've seen it, it's been a felony. So in that regard, qualified immunity has no bearing because it's already been determined by law that the officer involved did something deliberately to take someone's life or to do a host of other things that were a violation of that person's civil rights or constitutional rights. Did I answer your question on that one?
Yes, and also your stances on no-knock warrants and sale of military equipment.
Okay, the no-knock warrant, that is a very, very sticky situation. And the reason for that is because we have a host of recent cases that have come up where officers have gone into homes and ended up, one I know for sure, I just read about it just the other day. The officer had a no-knock warrant. He was looking for someone. They entered the home. The person who was sleeping on the couch had a weapon. The weapon was either in his hand or on his person. He did not know that the people who were coming in were the police, and the police shot and killed him. There have been other situations, which we heard about in Texas, where the lady was in her house. Oh, well, that was a different story. I'm sorry. Let me stick with the no-knock warrants. So I don't particularly like that, because I think that people should know they should have to knock on the door. They should have to make sure they set up their plan so that everybody knows what's everyone, meaning the law enforcement officers involved in the ringing warrant. They need to know what the house is, so there should be some investigation first. They need to know who lives in the house. They need to set up on the house and do a stakeout if necessary to determine when people are inside of the house. They need to have a picture of the individual that they want. If that person has a car, they need to know if the person has a variety of weapons. There are things in terms of an investigation that need to take place before we go out to serve the warrant or pick up the body. And it's so that we don't hurt people unnecessarily. We don't traumatize children unnecessarily. So I think that we are smart people. We're intelligent. We've been in this line of work for many, many years. We need to just slow down for a moment, make sure all of our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed before we go in there, guns blazing, and traumatize people or kill people when we could have done it a different way. I'm saying, look at the situation, consider everything, then make up a plan, and before you decide to go in and pick up the person who's inside. Did I answer that question for you?
Yes, and in the interest
Okay.
of time, I want to ask one final question, which is, do you believe the coroner's office should be split off from the Alameda County Sheriff's Office?
Such a good question. I get that at almost every Zoom meeting. I want you to know that in San Francisco, it is already separated. And the medical examiners who come out to help us when we respond to death situations, it's wonderful because it really does take a special person or special people to be involved in that every day. And they handle the remains with such respect. So what I want to say to you is I don't have a problem with it because I have lived with it, worked with it for the last 26 years. And I know that it can work and it can be productive. I think that the way we go about separating what is happening in Alameda County, separating the coroner's office from the sheriff's office is very important. Change isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just a different thing. That's all. It doesn't mean you weren't doing your job. It just means that this is a better fit for where we are today because people see that there could possibly be a conflict. So we want people to respect and to trust us. In order for that to happen, they must feel that the information is as transparent as possible. Why not split off the coroner's office and have a medical examiner be responsible for that? I can embrace it and don't have a problem with it. Anything else?
No, those were all the questions that were asked. Now I believe we're going to move towards closing statements.
Yes, sir.
Each candidate will be.
Kunal, you missed the question that I asked.
Oh, which one was that?
Well, the question was that you're running against Sheriff Ahern, and it's two Democrats running against the Republican. The Republican has in fact been endorsed by several Democrats, including Eric Swalwell, Sean Kumagai, and Tim Sabrante. What is your strategy for beating Sheriff Ahern in November, should you be the Democrat that moves on to the November race against him?
I did answer that question, and I said I was simply going to tell the truth, go to every Zoom meeting I can, get out there and make sure that people know who I am in the community. I think that I don't know Mr. Ahern personally. All I know is what I see and his lack and what I've read and the lawsuits that have come up and the fact that we're in a mandated consent decree because the Santa Rita jail was such a low priority. It can't be a low priority if you have 56 people who have died in that jail since 2014. There are people who are traumatized behind the fact that their loved ones are no longer with them. The question is, could we have done it differently? Could we have looked at services that are provided at that jail differently? That is not an A1 jail. And the reason why I'm saying that to you is because we arrest the people from the same demographic in San Francisco, and we don't see that kind of those deaths in our jails. Why? We're doing it differently. Why can't we change the way that we do things in Santa Rita? I am simply asking people that to think and reflect upon what it is that you want to happen in Alameda County. If you are satisfied with the status quo, if you're satisfied with the fact that people are laughing at us because we can't seem to get it together in Santa Rita jail based upon the deaths that are occurring, then vote for Ahern. But if you want change and if you want people to deliver services so that people can, the democratic way, so people can remain alive, go to court, do their time, get some training, come out and earn a livable wage with wraparound services, then you should vote for me.
Great. Thank you so much. Sorry for missing that question, Ellis. In the interest of time, I would like to move towards closing statements. I know we've kept Yesenia waiting a little bit. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for their closing remarks. I say we bring it back to Yesenia. You have the floor for 2 minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm a little out of breath. I just let my Yorkie out to go to the bathroom. right back. So I believe this is a grassroots campaign that will win and defeat a long-seated, never opposed sheriff. I am the only candidate to receive the endorsement of the California Democratic Party, the Alameda Labor Council, SEIU 10-1, NUHW, and the Building and Construction Trades Council. I've earned the endorsements of the Wellstone Democratic Renewal Club, Stonewall Dems, East Bay Young Dems, Latina Young Dems of the East Bay, Tri-Cities Democratic Forum, and the Castro Valley Dems. Other notable endorsements I touched on earlier were Supervisors Brown, Supervisor Valle, also Senator Wachowski, former Senator Lonnie Hancock, Assemblymember Bill Quirk, Assemblymember Mia Bonta, Board of Equalization member Malia Cohen, BART Director Latifah Simon, our Emeryville, Hayward, Berkeley, and Oakland mayors, city council members of these cities, including Albany, Fremont, and San Leandro, and very importantly, Livermore Valley Joint USD trustee Christy Wong. I will touch on the fact that we do have Title 15 training. It is not just an 8-hour course. It is an ongoing instruction that is reviewed on a regular basis in the jail. And I have ensured that not only do we train what is necessary, but we go above and beyond what the requirements are for Title 15 training and above. And I also partner with our mental health clinicians and supervisors, as well as our medical provider, to make sure that they are working with our sheriff's office deputies to ensure that we are providing the appropriate treatment and that we continue to encourage them and remind them why they came into this role to provide service. And the jail population does capture our community members, and never to lose sight of that. All of you have an opportunity to make a difference and be a part of history. You will have a hand in bringing Alameda County its first Latina sheriff. And I would be honored to have your endorsement. I really thank you for your time.
Great, thank you so much. And lastly, Joanne, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. This is the first time that Mrs. Sanchez has even mentioned anything about Title 15 in any of her contact with the public. What I want to say is this. I think about why I run all the time. And I wrote this because I want you to know what my feelings are. Change must be voted in. Change is not easy. Change is uncomfortable. Change requires the change agent to have a different vision of law enforcement services and how those services are paired with community resources. I represent the change Alameda County needs. I look different. My life experience and training are different. The differences are neither good nor bad. They simply allow me to envision a different future in Alameda County. So if you want change in Alameda County, vote for me. I am the only candidate who has already worked through a consent decree, and I represent true change for the department. Now, let me just bring you up to speed with what some of the other things that I believe are important. For my campaign, it's important to bring balanced leadership and legitimacy to the position of Alameda County Sheriff, to protect immigrant families, to improve inmate services at Santa Rita Jail, to establish working relationships with leaders in identified segments of the community, to apply 21st century policing strategies to reduce inmate fatalities, to establish systems that promote diversity at all levels of the Sheriff's Department, to improve training regarding the use of force and mentally ill and emotionally disturbed persons, to invest in technologies that improve operational capability and effectiveness, because that's going to help our people, meaning law enforcement people, do their jobs better. It is so important to keep the morale of the troops up when they are in a closed situation, meaning Santa Rita Jail, because it can be very daunting. And we need to take care of law enforcement people so they understand we get it. We understand what's going on, and we're here to help you so that you can do a better job. If you want change in Alameda County, vote for Joanne Walker. I am your candidate. Thank you.
Perfect. I'd like to thank both of the candidates for coming out, even though it was a bit strange. I'd say it worked out at the end. Thank you to both of the candidates for making time, and thank you for everybody else for joining and asking some great questions. I'm going to turn it back to our club president, Evan, and of course, my name is Kunal. Thank you for letting me host.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kunal, for doing an excellent job, especially with us going through some technical difficulties and having a very different format than we had discussed on the phone before this. You adapted great on the fly, and I want to thank the candidates both for spending their evening with us and adapting as well to, the variety of challenges we had with this. We're going to open up voting to all of our members in just a moment. Jackie will be sending out the voting form to everyone in just a minute. I do want to remind everyone, it's the message, not the medium, that matters. So, make sure you are listening, paying attention, and voting for the candidate you think is going to be best. It was unfortunate we had these technical difficulties, but I think both candidates had an excellent message for us. They did an excellent job of speaking to the values of this club. And so I know for me, at least, this will be a difficult choice. And I imagine for many of you, it will as well. So it's wonderful, to see that we have two great candidates in front of us, and I wish them both the best of luck on the campaign trail. I did put in the websites for both candidates into the chat. If you, regardless of who the club endorses, I encourage you to always support the candidate that you support, endorse, or cheer for. Volunteer, sign up to walk, sign up to help them make calls, put a yard sign out, whatever activity it is that you're comfortable with, donate. Especially in a race countywide, money is always a major issue, a major issue. This is, over 1 million people they're trying to speak to. So, wherever we endorse, that's where the club support will be, but always follow your heart, support the candidate that you like the most, and give, help, walk, whatever you can do to support your candidates, please do that. I see the voting form is there. So I'll thank our two candidates. Thank you both for coming out tonight. You can stay for the rest of the meeting if you'd like, but you don't need to. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for spending your evening with us.
you for having me. I appreciate this opportunity. It was truly an honor.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. You guys have a great evening.
Thank you. All right, and so with that, the voting form is in chat right now, so hopefully everyone has access to it. Let Jackie know if there are any technical issues. Because this is a two-person race, it is simply voting for either candidate or no endorsement, which also makes it easier for us to get the results. So we should be able to get the results back to everyone relatively quickly, hopefully relatively quickly at least. I no longer count on tech for always working as quickly as I hope it will. Thank you very much. Please do vote. Try to get your votes in before the end of the meeting. It makes it a lot easier for Jackie if everyone has voted before the end of the meeting. So with that, let me go back to our agenda.
Can I say something real quick about the form? Just a little, the way the form works. I just sent it to everybody. Please, members only, because I will go through it and take out any votes that are not from members. So please, members only. It will default up at the top. It'll show if you're logged into Google, it'll show whatever account you're logged in. You don't need to do anything there. All you have to do is key in a valid email address in the section and complete your vote. So that should be enough, and you should get a receipt. If anybody has a problem, IM me or DM me in the message and I'll work with you. Thank you. Back to you, Evan. Sorry.
No worries. I was using that as an opportunity for me to get my vote in. So worked out perfectly. So with that, again, please everyone vote. It's just wonderful hearing from them. Great set of candidates. It's a very exciting race, and I do think that this is a very important race for us to be involved in and focused on and really paying attention to. As one last thing on this race, before I move to the next item, it is a race where it is possible that it will end at the primary, but it is not necessarily going to end at the primary. If any candidate, either of the two we saw or the incumbent, gets 50% plus one votes at the primary, they'll be declared the winner. The race is over, and that's it. Whoever wins will be the winner. So it is a race that can be won in June. So you need to make sure, this is one we need to make sure that people are involved, people are active, and if you support either of the candidates, get involved now. The June primary is not that far away. So, you know, please support them early, support them with all your heart, because there might not be a second chance. There might not be a November race to vote in if you're waiting to see, you know, what happens. So please make sure you're involved now. So with that, I'm actually going to turn over the next section for a little bit to John Rowe to talk about AB 2546. I'm going to post a link up in just a sec. So while he's talking, I'll post a link so you can read along as well. But John, if you'd like to talk about this bill, take it away.
Thank you, Evan. Appreciate the time. Assembly Bill 2456 would increase the quality of life for our seniors and disabled who are in medical environment by allowing 24/7 access of their caregivers. I've been a caregiver to my wife for 16 years, who's now in assisted living, and have been barred from seeing her since mid-December. I'm her only contact with the outside world. AB 2456 would remedy that because there's enough scientific studies done that indicate this is extremely harmful for the people in these facilities, from being cut off from their loved ones, and any form of outside contact, which should also help ensure patient quality of care. Imagine what happens if a caregiver could go into a skilled nursing at 11 p.m. and find their loved one on the floor. And those things happen far too often. I'd like to ask you to urge your state assemblyman, for a good part of us, that's Rebecca, which I've already done, to help in this injustice to our seniors, to our impaired people with Alzheimer's and dementia primarily, but also, the disabled. This cuts across a lot of different spectrums. This is what I work in, because I'm the coordinator for long-term support services for community resources for independent living in Hayward. I deal with this every day. Are we putting our people, our seniors, our loved ones, our community members into a board care facility where they can vegetate until they die? Or are we trying to do something that lifts them up, keeps them involved in their community and their families? So I'm going to kindly request that you let me see Susie, number one, because the bill takes immediate effect. It's on an urgency basis. Second, you may not have to deal with this now, but you will be dealing with it in your future, because this is reality. We all get old if you don't die first. So please ask your assembly members to vote yes on AB 2456. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And I would actually ask John, if you would like to make a motion, I'll give you the first option to this. If you'd like to make a motion asking for the club's support as well, and to have the club write a letter on the club's behalf to.
That would be most appreciated, Evan. Great idea.
Would you like to make that motion?
Yeah, I would move that the Tri-Valley Democratic Club would endorse AB 2456 and to send written communications of such a decision to the appropriate elected officers. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And so that was a motion by John and a second by Ellis. Any further discussion or questions that anyone has before we go to a vote?
I'd like to work with John in writing that letter.
Just to clarify, it's 2546.
That is my typo then. Yeah, sorry, 2546.
Oh, okay.
Well, sorry, that was my bad of typoing in chat and messing you up, John.
That's quite all right, Evan. I do it all the time.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I'd just like to add some support. I do have a sister-in-law who we're not able to see, and she's in a care facility, and it's difficult for the sister-in-law who's actually losing ground because of the fact that she doesn't have the support from family.
Yeah.
We can, we can chat over the telephone, but being in person, even if it's just for a half an hour, is a major improvement and a major sense of belonging and worthwhileness that's transmitted to the person who may very well be feeling very lonely and isolated.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I mean,
I heartily endorse the vote and hope that we will all consider this to be something that is definitely worthwhile.
thank you. Very, very well said. Any other discussion, comments, questions?
I just really support this very strongly. I think we have many more pandemics ahead. I'm in the third year with my mother in a nursing facility. She's had COVID twice and is facing never being with her own children. So I very strongly support this.
Yeah, I don't usually make personal comments too much before we vote on things. I let the club, put their voice out first. But I'll just add on to, long-term care isn't meant to be a prison. It's meant to be care. And I just strongly agree in supporting this bill. I think it's, you know, an easy ask. We're supposed to be caring for the people in long-term care, and part of that is them being able to see their family, being able to see their loved ones, and as John said, being able to continue to be part of the community. So if there's no further comments.
Evan, can I ask? I, of course, support. My mother has been ill, and we've kept her at home because of COVID, and felt that if she went into a facility. But my understanding, John, is that the rules have lightened up to allow one visitor. That's not the case here?
Correct. The facility I have my wife in went into lockdown in mid-December because of the latest surge. I can tell you the Center for Medicare, Medi-Cal, which is a supervising federal agency over medical facilities, does allow for in-person visits if they can be accommodated in a separate room with an open window. Those are the federal guidelines. We have no such guidelines at the state level. So one administrator in one facility, a group of facilities, can make this decision on their own. And I got to add my own personal note. I'm not doing so well either with being isolated and lonely from my spouse, because I know she misses me, and we talk every single day on the phone.
Right.
This one strikes me at home. This is where I live.
Right. Sure.
I've been taking care of her since her original disability in 2005. And damn it, this isn't going to continue into my watch.
Well, John, I support you completely. My mother is in another state, so that is, I'm sure, why it's a bit different there. But yes, she probably should be, and for at least a year or more, should have been in an assisted living. And to the burden of family, we've been keeping her home, and it's been very difficult. But because we didn't want to limit during COVID her access, so
if you'd
I'm
like
so
to
sorry.
call me and see what I know can help you and help her, I'm going to post it in the chat room, because this is what I do for a living.
Right.
And I've been doing it for a long time.
Well, John, I support you completely. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you. And with those kind words, I will call for a vote. So all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Hearing none, the vote passes unanimously. And Ellis, if you can please work with John to get a letter for our elected officials and send that out as soon as possible. All right, thank you very much, and excellent. With that, next I'll be turning it over to Jackie with the Central Committee updates and the approval of the minutes.
Okay, first off on the minutes, Evan, you did supply those, correct? In the
I'll paste them again. I believe that is the right one for the minute.
So last month, there was superintendent of school introduction and endorsement. The club ended up endorsing LK Monroe. Igor spoke about the Ukraine, very heartfelt stories there, and shared with the club ways to donate either through 501c3 organizations or sending money to Igor. And we provided all the information on how to do that if you want to help the Ukraine. And then we had a blanket endorsement of our elected officials, Eric, Mark Desailliers, Rebecca Bauer-Cahan, and that passed. And in the Central Committee last month, I talked about the passing of Terry Sandoval, and Igor was, by the way, nominated to chair, and Tanya Love is now vice chair of the Central Committee. Does anybody have any corrections additions for last month's minutes?
I sent you my 4 corrections and those were handled very smoothly and quickly. And I just want to say that this is a very professional document and I'm pleased these minutes are just so well done.
Thank you, Ron. So does somebody move to go ahead and approve the minutes then?
I so move.
Thank
Second.
you. And a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So the minutes pass. The Central Committee this month, there is a list of endorsed candidates. The committee, if 2 committee members brought up a candidate for the June primary, you could have 2 committee members bring them up for a blanket endorsement that was done last week. I have a list of those endorsed candidates. I will be sending it out to the club. Not everybody got the endorsement of the Central Committee. And then from there, they're going to start working on slate cards, campaigns to do calling. So I will be putting together a list of the priority races, and those are going to be the races that had competition. Of course, some of these races do not have any competition, like some of the Superior Court seats, there's no competition, so there's no need to really spend the money. But in our area, Cheryl Cook-Callio was endorsed, and she does have several people she's running against, so I hope to get club members to help out with that when we start doing door knocking or canvassing or whatever else that the Central Committee comes up with. So stay tuned for that. And I was given a chair seat on the communications committee, and we will be working out all the details of how those campaigns look. So I hope to get some of our club members on some of these campaigns, like Sheriff or Cheryl Cook-Callio or Zone 7, where we will be spending some money from the Central Committee to help candidates. And that's it for the Central Committee for this month. And I'll turn it back over to Evan.
Awesome. Thank you. Next, I skipped around a little bit. Next is the treasurer's report from Alan.
Treasurer's report for this month. We had income of $100 from dues. Our expenses were $4.73 in credit card charges. Our Zoom charges for the annual Zoom charges, $149.90. Our PO box was $129 even, making total expenses of $283.63, which leaves us an ending balance of $3,639.38. Our membership, we have 112 members, and we're showing about 52 who have not renewed. That's a little funny figure because sometimes if it's a family, it could be 1, it could be 2. But that's the figure we have is 112 members. Last year at this time, we had 117, and our balance last year was 39, 38, 36. So we're about the same.
Thank you very much. And then we're going to move on to announcements and new business. And I actually have a lot of announcements today. I don't know the order to do them with, so I think I'll start with the biggest news, let everyone have their moment of shock, and then I'll go to my other smaller bits of news. So the biggest news I have is that unfortunately, due to circumstances outside of the club, I'm going to have to step down as the president of the club. So I'll no longer be serving as the president after this meeting. I've spoken with the rest of the executive team. Ron has volunteered as the vice president to fill in, and he is ready and able, and it's going to be going. The rest of the leadership team will still be in place. I'll still be helping out where I can. I'll still be attending meetings, just not getting rid of me completely. I just won't have time, unfortunately, to continue with the president's duties. Unfortunately, my term ends a few months early. I got most of the way there, but so it goes sometimes. So I am going to be turning over leadership of the club to Ron. He's going to actually finish out the meeting today. But while I have the floor, I'm going to do two other less important announcements, maybe. I don't know, more important, whatever. We shouldn't be raking the importance of things. I have two other announcements. So one is I do have the link now for volunteering with Sean. So he reached out to me just to check. He can't make it to the meeting. He's actually busy right now, campaigning. So I do want to give everyone the opportunity. There's a Google form. I'm posting it in chat. We'll send it out also with our next update email. But some of the events will happen before the next update email comes out. So if you can, click on that link, sign up, volunteer, help Sean. You know, he's a long-term member. He was endorsed by the club. He is our chosen candidate. So please help him out. Try to get him elected. He's been doing some great work locally and doing some great work on the state level. So, you know, I hope to see you all, you know, out there on I believe it's Saturdays, but maybe it's Sunday. I need to check. Or doing the phone banks on Thursdays. So if you can, please volunteer there. And then the other thing is just an event that I have been volunteering with that just looks like it will be a ton of fun. It's the LARPD Foundation is hosting a fundraiser in Sycamore Grove. It's a wine tasting and food pairing and some ranger-led activities, and it's supporting the scholarship program to get, you know, youth, seniors, families who can't afford outdoor activities to be able to go. And so we are selling tickets right now, and I just wanted to give people an opportunity if they wanted to go. It's the Wine Down in the Grove fundraiser. You can read more about it. I put a link to the Eventbrite in the chat. So I hope to see you all there. It's going to be a really cool one. So with that, I am going to go to Ellis. Is your hand raised for an announcement or?
Right. I spoke to Ron about the agenda, and he said he put in a political director's report. And I don't know if you skipped over that or what.
No, that's coming up.
Oh, okay. That's wasn't sure about the order.
All right. And then Julie.
I'm also not sure about the order, so I apologize if this is, I have a question that I probably should have asked while we were still discussing the endorsements. There used to be, or I thought there was, a rule about endorsing Republican candidates when there was a Democrat challenger. Does that not apply to this club? Does that no longer apply to the Central Committee? I'm confused. Does anyone have an answer?
Can you clarify? So my understanding of the rules is that we do not endorse Republican candidates, period. This is a Democratic club. We can endorse only Democrats or no party preference people for no party preference races. But my understanding of the bylaws for both the Central Committee and for us is that Republicans are not eligible for endorsement, and it would be in partisan races, I believe only Democrats are eligible.
So thank you, Evan. I understand that as a club, but as members, I thought that there was even a restriction that members could not endorse Republican candidates. Is that not true?
I think that's true for the Central Committee, but it's not true for members of individual clubs. But I think that the clubs are not allowed to endorse anybody but Democrats. So the no party preference is not even one of our choices. Unless you're a registered Democrat, we can't endorse you.
Right.
That seems to, I haven't got the rules the bylaws in front of me, but my recollection of the bylaws, which I've read a few times.
The Central Committee will not endorse any Republicans, but I'm wondering if where Julie's question is going is Eric Swalwell is endorsing the sheriff. And
As were several others, it sounded like, and I know I was told very firmly that that is not allowed for members, that members will be excommunicated or something. I don't know. I thought it was a pretty severe consequence. So, and I thought that the Tri-Valley Tri-Valley Dems had aligned all of our policies with the Central Committee. So didn't we? So wouldn't that be the same?
There's a lot that's been aligned, for instance, things that could get us in trouble, like voting, endorsing more than the number of seats available. They made that pretty clear, and they do review our bylaws when we get chartered. Every time it's renewed, they review all the bylaw changes that we've made since last chartering. And it's up to them to say, hey, you don't meet our criteria, and they could kick us out. They could uncharter us.
Okay.
Julie, concerning the Central Committee and people like Eric Swalwell or any other elected official, it's a two-part process. And that, let's say that somebody wanted to get rid of Eric Swalwell off the Central Committee for endorsing Greg Ahern for sheriff, who's a Republican. They would have to bring him up on charges in front of the Central Committee, and the Central Committee would have to vote to remove the membership. And I'm not even sure it's a 50% vote. It might be a 2/3 or something like that. We just had that situation in Contra Costa where we actually did remove a member for endorsing a Republican candidate.
Well, actually, that member was removed because of so-called anti-LGBTQ stances. This is why they removed the mayor of Fremont.
That was the mayor of Fremont.
Right.
That was yet a different story, and he wasn't removed.
The other guy on the council.
Yeah.
So I looked into our bylaws just to make sure that at least internally, I can't speak to the Alameda County Central Committee's bylaws. For our bylaws, it's fairly specific on the two parts of it, which is one is Alice was right that it is we endorse Democrats, whether it's a nonpartisan race or a partisan race. You have to be a registered Democrat in order to be endorsed by the club. And the second part of it is that you are not allowed to endorse or support any Republican candidates in the name of the club, but it would not be so specifically. Officers are not allowed to endorse Republican candidates, although the wording on that maybe should be a little bit cleaner because it's not 100% clear on what its meaning is there. But members wouldn't be able to invoke the name of our club in any endorsement. So if a member of our club chose to endorse a Republican, then it would not automatically remove them from the club, or honestly, it wouldn't even be grounds for removal. Per our bylaws, there are other methods of removing a member if we thought to do that, but it wouldn't be an automatic thing. It would be something that they could personally do, but they wouldn't be allowed to invoke our name.
And that's I think that's very reasonable, but that isn't the way the Central Committee was stated to be much more severe. But so my understanding was that someone would not be eligible for endorsement by either the Central Committee or our club if they were endorsing Republican candidates. They're not eligible for endorsement. Is that true? No.
Our bylaws don't speak at all to the endorsements given by someone we endorse. It doesn't go into that much detail on, who our endorsed candidates would be. But again, for the central committee, I don't have the central committee's bylaws in front of me, and they're too long for me to reference on the fly. They're pretty complex.
Thank you. I apologize for taking the time, but thank you for
No,
answering.
I appreciate, and always I like to make sure our bylaws are clear on as many things as possible, as you've seen with the several meetings we've done on bylaws.
Right.
And so, any questions about them, I'm always happy to look and see if we can sort it out. And so, yeah, I appreciate the questions. I'm sorry, I don't know the details, and I don't know if, other than Jackie, I don't know if anyone here would know more than I do about the central committee's bylaws.
I could read through them and report back on that. Like you said, they're pretty long, and it's a lot to do with the state party being in compliance with the state party rules. So I'll look into that and get back to you.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other announcements, questions, comments?
Just, isn't Nancy O'Malley a Democrat?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, she also is endorsing Sheriff Ahern.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
But she's retiring.
I know, it's just it's just such a weird time. I mean, there are some really, really crazy Republicans out there. Be interesting to understand why they think that this is a good move. I suppose it might be worth asking them. They want to drop in and explain.
Well, I'll hit Sean up and see if he is endorsing, then see what his reasoning is, if that's the case.
And why they're endorsing him.
Yeah, that would definitely be interesting. An interesting thing to hear from, the members that have a good relationship with our club.
The only conversation I had with Igor about it, his comment was, they're not supposed to be doing that. So
Oh,
okay.
they're not supposed to be doing that, but which bylaw controls that? I'll have to dig that up.
I think Robin Torello's a member of our club, and she's got her phone number listed, so you might want to give her a call.
I will be on a Zoom call with those folks this week, so I'll check in. That's exactly what I will be doing in the central committee, is working with some committee members to get their prioritizations, and we will ask that question.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you, Julie, for bringing that up. It spawned some interesting questions, some interesting follow-ups. So I'm curious to hear what they have to say as well. Any other announcements or questions before I turn it over to Ron? All right, then I'm going to turn it over to Ron for the remainder of the meeting. I think there's a couple other sections on the agenda, but Ron, take it away.
Well, thank you, Evan. And I wanted to first say, I'm going to turn down my other, I had two feeds going here. So I wanted to first say that it's been a very valuable thing for to have you as a president for the last 16 months. And we wish you the very best in your race for the city council for Livermore. And I know that it's been something that you have been qualified for, and something that you will do a wonderful job in. So I wanted to not only thank you for the 16 months of wonderful service for the club. You're very verbal, you're technologically smart, you have a good political head on your shoulder, and you take care of people and do wonderful things for us. So we're going to miss you. And I'll put together a little thank you that you can hang on your wall, whether it be a plaque or a certificate would be up to you. But you deserve a little something to show of physically that you've served well for us as the president of the Tri-Valley Democratic Club.
Thank you very much.
Let me turn down this other one again, more technical stuff. And let's turn it further down. Okay, there we go. Great. Okay, so I'm going to have to learn to do some of the technical stuff that I haven't been able to do in the past. And I'm hoping that Jackie will be able to teach me how to work more efficiently with the Zoom factors and the chimp mail, etc. But I think that this is a wonderful opportunity for the club to become more involved on a wider scale basis, especially with the fact that we're coming out of a period of COVID. Oh, I still can't hear the sound. Okay, there's my backup sound gone. We're coming out of a period of kind of isolation and having to go on Zoom. We're hoping to be able to get back into physical meetings. By the month of June, I'll be contacting Greg at the IBEU and seeing if we can get that set up for our June meeting, but it looks like we'll be doing a Zoom meeting again in May. What I'd like to do is, at this point, I'd like to say that I would want the standing committees that we have for the club to get a bit more involved in the monthly meetings, in order to help me out and also to kind of expand the scope of the club. We have had standing committees for some time, and about a year ago, in the May meeting of last year, we came up with a listing of people and directors for these standing committees. And what I would like to do is firm up tonight that each of you who volunteered to be a director of a committee still would like to do that task. And I'd also like you to prepare for each of our meetings a brief report on what your standing committee has done. And so let me review these committees. Right now we have the political director is Ellis, and he'll be speaking a little later. He's got time allocated for that in the agenda here tonight. Communications director, we have Sarah. Sarah, do you still want to be head of a committee, the communications standing committee?
Yeah, I'm here and I'm happy to do so.
Great. Okay. And for an environmental committee, we have Van. Van, is this something that you would continue to want to do and could be more actively involved? Okay, I can't hear anything from Van.
I think we also had him, Van, as the local, or the issues chair. So political issues chair for national, regional issues.
Okay.
I believe Van had to leave a little bit early. He just logged off a couple minutes ago.
All right. So,
Ron, could I join Van in the environmental committee?
yes. And
Okay.
who is this?
This is Mark
Mark.
Van Landuit. Another
Okay.
Van.
All right. Okay, and for labor relations, we have John Rowe. Are you still here, John?
Yes, I am. And my goodness, thank you for jogging my memory. I was supposed to be doing something.
Yeah, well.
No, I do always try to keep you informed of the labor issues in the county, or even
Okay.
national for that matter.
Okay.
So I'm quite willing to stay on and be happy for any additional help someone may want to do.
Any volunteers to work with John? Okay.
That's okay, you know,
I wonder if Marisol might be interested in that. She's involved with labor
great
issues.
suggestion. Thank you. I'll reach out to her, ask her if she's interested.
Thank you.
Good. So each of you, if you could make a brief report at the next meeting as to what's going on, or if there's nothing going on with your committee, let us know. For membership, we have Samir. I don't think Samir is here tonight. I'll contact him and notify him that we'd like him to become more actively involved and at least give us a report similar to what we have with the treasurer, so that he can keep us updated on membership and membership changes. For social media, we had a committee, but we don't have a director that I know of. Does anybody want to be responsible for that?
I think that falls under Sarah with digital communications.
Correct.
Digital communications and social media. Sarah, were you going to handle those?
Yeah, we've been doing social media for the last year or so. So I imagine they fall into each other quite well.
Okay. Communications and social media.
And
Okay.
I believe Richard has been helping out with that quite a bit as well.
And Richard. Okay.
And
for
this is
you,
Kashif. I'm happy to help out as well.
Kunal,
If
who said that he would.
Awesome. Kasha,
would-
can you send maybe private chat me your email or something?
yes, will
Okay.
do.
Thank you so much. This is
Okay, good. So Kunal, did you want to work with youth? Did you have a particular feel for that?
Kunal had to leave a little
He's
bit early
gone?
also. He had another
Okay.
commitment.
So I'll contact him. Okay. So I also want to ask the members here tonight if there's anything in particular that they would like to see added to our meetings that we have. Say, for example, some kind of guest speaker or training. For example, maybe we do some trainings now that we're opening up physically to more campaign activities. Maybe we do some training on tables, tabling, and precinct walking. We could also have some brief trainings either by skilled members in our club or guest speakers on phone banking. Might be nice to have a little description of that stuff. So you can either email me with ideas that you have or things that you'd like to see in our meetings, in addition to having the candidate endorsements and the weekly or the monthly reports from the Central Committee, the treasurer, and the who else? Labor Relations, or Jackie for the Alameda County Central Committee. I'd also like to have, as soon as we are certified by the Contra Costa Central Committee, I'd like to have someone volunteer to give us a report similar to what Jackie's been doing on what's happening at the Contra Costa Central Committee. Okay, good. Anybody have any ideas of what they might like to see in upcoming meetings or things that we might like to do, trainings, speakers, etc.? John?
I'd like to volunteer for giving some training on phone banking. It's something I've been doing for, oh God, 30 plus years.
Okay.
And it enabled me to have my crew, when I was phone banking in 08, exceed our forecasted goals. And I want to pass along to you how you professionally phone bank.
That'd be wonderful. Now, would you like to do that in May or June?
Oh, geez, Ron, now I got to make a decision. How about June? This month seems to be busy enough, and I got a feeling next month is equally as busy, but Yeah,
Okay,
we can do that.
all right, that sounds good.
Ron,
Yes.
I would like to volunteer for reporting on the Contra Costa Central Committee. However,
Okay.
at this point, there is no effort going on to be chartered by Contra Costa County. And I can report on what's going on there because we go to the meetings and how we might work with them. But chartering, it doesn't look like it's in the cards.
Okay. All right, well, that would be good. Let's hear, I think, you know, even on a monthly basis, that would be good to hear about that. Okay,
Ron, I'd like to make maybe a suggestion for next month, maybe instead of a normal, well, unless we have another endorsement group to do, but if we don't, use that as a working session to actually do some of these things for the June primary endorsement cycle. So if, for example, if the Central Committee comes out and says, okay, we want to focus on sheriff and we want to focus on the supervisor area 3, that our group can help Alameda County with some bodies actually making the calls and doing the texting. And we're going to have a lot of stuff to do in a very short window, in just a couple weeks. So it might be nice to use next month's meeting as an actual working meeting.
okay, that sounds good. And did you want to work with me in terms of getting some structure for that and some people who want to make contributions?
Yes, I will do that. I'm meeting with some of the Central Committee people this week to identify which campaigns we'll be working on, and then they're going to set up the texting and all that. So within another week or two, we should have kind of the structure laid out of how we can do it, what we're going to do, and the materials to do it with.
Okay,
So,
that sounds good.
yeah, thank
Because
you.
we do want to get our club members to be more active political influencers. We have a lot of talent in this club, a lot of experience, and we should be utilizing that to help the community and help out both counties. Okay.
Ron, could I add something to the agenda for next month? Well,
All right.
we have 2 candidates that I've heard of tonight. Of course, I knew about Evan in advance, but Cheryl Cook-Callio was also running for the County Board of Education, if I remember correctly. And I'm not sure, Evan, is there anybody running against you?
It's very, very far out. So the election, the filing deadline isn't even for another 4 months, I think, 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, but we ought to get an endorsement in as early as possible for you and for Cheryl, and I'm not sure if there's any Democrats running against Cheryl. And from what I understand, former Mayor Marchand is running in Livermore, and Sharon tells me Moni Knopp is also running in Livermore, and I think that they're both Democrats.
I don't know if John is.
Monty is, because he's a member of our club.
Yeah,
Monty is, but I don't know if John is. I think he's never taken a position.
No. I don't
Evan
think
may
so.
know better.
I'm not sure. I know that he's spoken at the club, but it was at like a holiday party.
Okay.
We want to hear your spiel, Evan.
You're suggesting, Ellis, that Cheryl come on? And,
Yeah, well, that we consider endorsing Cheryl, Evan, and let's see how many Democrats are running in Livermore for mayor. And maybe we want to have them on.
But we can do those, the mayor and that later, because they're not on until November. We should be focusing on June, which
Okay.
is Cheryl's campaign, Zone 7, sheriff, and then we have a special election in Livermore coming up by May 3rd, a separate one for Prop A, which was also endorsed by the Central Committee.
Our meeting will be after May 3rd.
exactly. So we don't even have time for that one.
But I would encourage everyone to support Measure A if you live in Livermore.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Real good. Now, we did have, just to notify all of the membership here, that we did have an executive board meeting a while back, about a month ago. And at the meeting, I was asked to fulfill the role of president. So with a little bit of arm twisting, I did fill it, but it was part of my responsibility as vice president. But you can see that I have a couple little red marks right here. So it's not something that I would have jumped into, but I know that this is something that, with all of our help, like I sang in the beginning of last meeting, with a little help from our friends, we'll all get by. So I will be filling in the position until January of next year, when we will be electing a new president. At this point, I don't plan to run. I just plan to be a transitional president. And this also brings up another issue that we might want to fill the position of vice president. So do we have anybody who wants to step up, or anybody that would have a nominee that they would like to put in? And we can take nominations tonight and then also next meeting, if we plan to do a vice presidency election. And I think it's a good idea. Any indications of anybody who wants to step up?
I have some ideas, but I want to talk to people before I put them in front of the club. So
okay,
I'll talk to them and then either email you or talk about it next month.
Sounds good. Okay.
I will step up with a big if nobody else runs.
Ah, okay. Interesting. Good.
And I used to be vice president.
And my wife might want to run, but
Nah, hospitality is enough, right, for now.
Okay. Good, good, good. Okay, let's go ahead and have Ellis make our first report from a standing committee as our political director. Ellis, can you take us through what's going on locally in terms of important political events?
it won't be long. It's all on this piece of paper. Okay. First of all, the job of political director has to do with our bylaws, which says our purpose is opportunities for political impact, providing our members with opportunities for political impact on jobs, justice, peace, planet, and I forgot the other one, and democracy. Okay, so in that regard, I told Ron that I would help him find speakers for the club, not only elected officials, but what we've done in the past is various authors and people who write for newspapers and such. And all of the members are welcome to suggest speakers for the club that would go along with that goal of opportunities for political impact. So that includes educating the public. The second thing that we do is we take actions, and we're going into, and we're in the midst of a political season. And in the past, we've done tabling in Pleasanton, and in fact, at the Livermore Farmers Market way back when. And tabling isn't just showing up on a Saturday morning for a few hours and talking to voters. Of course, that's an important part of it. But part of it is the logistics part of gathering the literature from various candidates and ballot measures and such, creating some signage so that when you show up on Saturday morning, you've already put in a few hours work during the week putting all of that together. And I'm looking for people who are interested in doing that, and I can help them figure out how exactly to do that. Another thing that we're involved in, and it's been mentioned tonight, campaigning. Of course, Sean is asking for people to do some phone banking for him and walk some precincts. About a quarter of our club is typically in Contra Costa County. We've got a big race there for district attorney. Dinah Becton is a campaign that Sharon and I are working on. She's the breaker of 2 glass ceilings, the first woman DA in Contra Costa and the first person of color in Contra Costa to be district attorney. And she's had the guts to take on Sheriff Livingston and, of course, convicted Officer Hall of manslaughter and put somebody from the sheriff's office in jail for 6 years. So we're working on that campaign. Part of our job is endorsements. And we did some of that tonight, but inviting candidates to speak at the club and ask for the club's endorsement. And what I'd like to consider is that all the members of the club are really part of this political committee. So if anybody has anybody they would like to see endorsed, come to the political director, we'll get it on the agenda, and we'll do our due diligence, which is our real job. There's also right now, there's something called PDI, which is it's going to help us campaigning in Alameda, and I know they have it in Contra Costa. And PDI is basically an app that you have on your phone that the political campaigns would give you a password and assign precincts to you. And the phone app would actually walk you to the next house of the next Democrat that you wanted to talk to. So we'll see if we can get that going. Jackie said she was going to look into what they're doing in Contra Costa. So I'd like to hear about what's going on there. But again, all the members are part of the political committee, and you all should have my phone number by now. I've sent it out 1,000 times. So,
Oh, Ron, I have a suggestion who we can invite. Mark DeSanya is going to be part of this congressional district.
right. So we could have Mark DeSanya as a speaker also.
Okay, so for either the May or the June meeting.
That's the political director's report.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you much. Okay, we're running just a few minutes over. So I wanted to say once again that we're sorry to see Evan leave us, but he is stepping up to a bigger and better future. We don't want to hold him back. He's got an awful lot of talent, and who knows, maybe he becomes our next Eric Swalwell.
Right.
Our next executive board member who becomes someone who goes to Washington for us, and maybe this time actually puts Trump in prison. So thank you, Evan, for 16 months of wonderful service. Let's hear a big round of applause for Evan. And I know you'll be around a little bit to help us out, but thank you again. And I think this is it. Are we ready to adjourn? We'll say goodnight.
If the officers want to stay on, I'm going to stop the recording. And if you guys could stay on, I'll give you the results of our vote tonight.
Wonderful meeting. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.